Hello friends, myself Pranita Afre, and here I am to present you the special lectures only during the lockdown. So today we'll be starting with the lesson from 10th standard, that is the chemical reactions and equations. So basically, what is a chemical reaction? And the main thing, why do the chemical reactions occur? So the main thing for this, why do the chemical reactions occur? The reason is that in the universe, as we all see, each and everything, each and every smallest thing tries to get stabilized, right? It tries to get stable. So the atoms do. The atoms which are present in the universe, they try to get stable, and so in order to get the stability, that is by completing the octet in the outermost orbit of an atom, it stabilizes. So just to complete the octet, an atom combines with the other atom and forms a bond, which you have already studied in your previous standards. So now we'll be dealing with the chemical reactions. So what are basically the chemical reactions? Why do the chemical reactions occur? That has been clear to you. Now, how do the chemical reactions occur and how to write the equations? So here we'll be starting with the chemical reaction. So if you see in your surrounding, there are the changes which takes place in our surrounding are basically categorized into two types. That is, the two types of it are chemical change and physical change. So what is the physical change? The change in which the matter, or we can say the composition of the matter, doesn't change. It means, suppose when a water changes, when a water is cooled, it changes into an ice. So only the form of the water changes, but the composition of water, that is H2O, will be the same in the ice, that is H2O. So that is, the composition has remained the same. So this is called as physical change, in which the composition of the matter doesn't change. Only the physical state may change. So we can represent, or we can define the chemical change as when the temperature, because of the temperature change or pressure change, if there is any change in the matter, then that is the physical change without changing the composition of the matter. Now what is chemical change? So whenever the composition of the matter changes, when the identity of the matter changes into another identity, into some different substance, then that is called as the chemical change. So let me explain. When we cook a food, so the food is raw at first. When we'll cook it, so it will change into the new substances. Or to make it more clear, when we eat the food gets digested, and you all know that how the what is digestion of food? That means the conversion of complex food material into simple substances. That is what is the digestion of food. It means, for example, carbohydrate which we eat, that gets converted into simple sugar, that is glucose. So this is nothing but the chemical change. So there are some changes in our surrounding. Few of them are physical changes, few of them are chemical changes. So to list out the examples, conversion of water into ice and vice versa, or ice to water and water to the steam. So these are the physical changes. And what are chemical changes? Like digestion of food, cooking of food, or rusting of an iron, or rusting or corrosion, any kind of corrosion. So these all are the chemical changes. So this is how we can differentiate between the physical change and a chemical change. Now we'll start with the chemical reactions. So what are basically the chemical reaction? How to define chemical reaction? Chemical reaction in which some previous bonds are broken down and some new bonds are formed. This is what is the chemical reaction or a chemical change. To make it clear, suppose this is an atom which is combined with another atom. This is the bond in between both. And suppose this is the third kind of atom, which is the only atom, not combined with anything, with any other atom. Now what happens in a chemical reaction is, this bond which was present in between two atoms gets broken and the new bond is formed. This atom may form the bond with this atom, or this atom may form the bond with this atom. So there can be two possibilities. So this atom may go with this, or this atom may go with this. It depends on the condition of the reactions, it depends on the type of atom, and there are many more factors on which this depends. But this is basically previous bonds are broken and the new bonds are formed. This is what is a chemical reaction. Now to present a chemical reaction, we need to present it on the board. We cannot present it all the time with such diagrams. So we need to present it in a sophisticated manner on the paper. For that there was a need of chemical equations. So how to write the chemical equation is, suppose let's take an example. Suppose I have taken copper sulfate solution. So I can write over here copper sulfate solution I have taken, and I have taken zinc, that is zinc dust or zinc powder. I have taken copper sulfate solution which is in the liquid state, and I have added zinc powder which is in the solid state into it. Now this both will react and there will be the chemical reaction between these both, and a new products will be formed. So what are the products formed are zinc sulfate, and copper. So these are the two new substances which we get from the previous ones. So this is what is a chemical change, and what we have written is a chemical equation. But all the time it is not possible to write it in this way with the actual name of it. So for this we will be using the chemical formulae. You have learned what are the chemical formulae and what chemical formulas are written for the name. So suppose here copper sulfate. So copper sulfate is written as CuSO4 plus zinc is written as Zn, will give us zinc sulfate which is ZnSO4 and copper which is nothing but Cu. So this is how CuSO4 plus Zn gives ZnSO4 plus Cu, and this is what is called as the condensed form of chemical equation, and this is how we write the chemical equation always. Now let's have a look on rules for writing a chemical equation. So we'll be taking the same equation, that is copper sulfate plus zinc which gives zinc sulfate and copper. So whenever we write a chemical equation, so this is not it. There are certain rules to present the whole condition of the reaction, like in what condition the reaction is taking place, how other products and reactants written. So as you can see, this is an arrow which is heading towards one side. So the substances which are written on left hand side of an arrow are the substances which are reacting. So that are called as the reactants, and the substances which are written on the right hand side of an arrow are the yield of the reaction. So they are called as the products. And the arrow always heading towards the product, because arrow indicates the direction of reaction, in which direction the reaction takes place. So the reaction is taking place here from left to right, so the arrow is heading towards the right. And now the reactants and products, if there is one reactant or one product, then it is not needed. But if there are two or more reactants or two or more products, then each of the reactant and products are separated by plus sign in between. So here there are two reactants, so that are separated by a plus sign, and two products which are separated by a plus sign again, and an arrow which heading towards the product to show the direction of the reaction. Now these substances might be in different states. Some might be in solid, some might be in liquid, some might be in gaseous form, some might be in the solution state. So to get a clear idea about the state of the substance, we need to mention it in the chemical equation. So if the substance is solid, then we'll write it S. For liquid we'll write L. For gas we'll write G. And these are written in the bracket on the right hand side of each of the reactant and product. Now this is about solid, liquid and gas. Now what happens sometimes, some solid, or suppose in case of copper sulfate, we have taken a powder of copper sulfate which is dissolved in water. That means we have made a solution of it. So whenever a substance is dissolved in water, what state we get, that is called as the aqueous state, which is represented by AQ. And so in this reaction, copper sulfate was dissolved in water and we have got a solution of it. So we'll be writing it as AQ, that is it is in the aqueous form. Now zinc was the solid, of course it's a metal, so it's in the solid powdered form. Now zinc sulfate, which is formed, that is in the liquid, that is in the aqueous state, again what we got. And then copper, which is in the solid state. So this is how we represent the states of each of the substances or each of the reactants and the products taking part in the chemical reaction. Now suppose there is a gas which is evolved on the product side, so we can define it or we can represent it with an upward arrow. So an arrow which is heading upward means a gas is evolved, or that substance is in the form of gas. And in some reactions a precipitate is formed. You know what is precipitate? It means the undissolved solid. Okay, so undissolved solid, that is precipitate, which could be formed in any of the reactions. So to represent that precipitate, and downward arrow is shown on the, of course, on the right hand side of that product. So this is how we can represent the state of each of the reactant and each of the product. Now in certain reactions, some condition is needed. It means some temperature in some reactions will not occur if you do not provide a temperature or pressure. So if we want to measure it or if we want to show it, let's take an example of calcium carbonate. When the calcium carbonate is heated, it gives calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So when it is heated, it gives calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So now this calcium carbonate, it is heated in order to get this products. So if we want to mention it in the equation that heating is needed, so we will mention it over the arrow. In the form, heating is represented in the form of a triangle. So this is how we can show that in this reaction the heating is needed or the temperature is supplied to the reaction. So this is the next rule to write down the chemical reaction. Now in certain chemical reaction, as you all know, catalyst is used, right? So if we take vegetable oil, and if we add hydrogen into it, then vegetable oil, by adding hydrogen, that is converted into the vanaspati ghee. So that is converted into vanaspati ghee. But simply by adding hydrogen, this reaction will not occur. So there is a need of some temperature, specific temperature, and a catalyst. So here the temperature which is needed is 60 degrees Celsius and the catalyst which is needed is nickel or platinum or palladium, any of it. So let's take nickel for now. So this is the catalyst and this is the temperature. So this is how the conditions of the reactions are represented below or above the arrow. So this will give a complete information about a chemical reaction in this simple equation. So this is how the equations are written. Let us understand an experiment. We've taken a sodium chloride solution in a conical flask and silver nitrate solution in the test tube. So what we've done is keep the conical flask which is filled with sodium chloride and the silver nitrate solution which is taken in the test tube. Deep that test tube into the conical flask, tilt it, okay, and we have covered this conical flask with a rubber cord, so that is to prevent the exchange of gases if it is formed. And we have to weigh it, the whole thing we need to weigh on a balance. If we'll weigh it, we'll get a certain weight of it. Now after that, what we'll do is the silver nitrate solution from the test tube is poured into the sodium chloride so that they get mixed and they react with each other. Now when they react with each other, again we need to see the, we need to weigh it on the balance. And if we observe the weight, if we compare both the weight, both the weights are exactly equal, both the weights are exactly same. What does it mean? These are the reactants, and of course this will be the product after reacting. Both these weights are same. It indicates that the amount of matter on the reactant side and the product side will be same. That means there is no change in the weight of matter, there is no change in the mass. So that is the law of conservation of mass, as you have learnt before. So this law is obeyed in a chemical reaction as well. So the total mass of reactant and the total mass of product should be same. Okay, so what does it mean? The number of atoms, on both the side of a chemical equations must be same. So this is satisfied, or this is done by balancing the equation. So sometimes the equations are not balanced. We need to balance the equation. So there are certain rules to balance the chemical equation. So we'll see how to balance the chemical equation. So for that we'll take an example here. NaOH, sodium hydroxide, is reacting with sulfuric acid to give sodium sulfate and water, of course, an H2O molecule. So as we can see, to balance the chemical equation we need to draw a table. In the table there will be three columns. In this, first will be the elements, so we'll be writing each individual element in this column, and the column for reactants and a column for products, which will indicate the number of atoms. So to start with, let's start with to write the elements. So first Na, that is sodium. Then after that we have oxygen, which this is repeated. How many the atoms will be repeated in the reactants or products, so we need to write it once. Oxygen, then hydrogen and sulfur. So these are the four atoms which are involved in this whole reaction. So how many sodium atoms are present on the reactant side? It is on the left hand side, so that is one sodium atom. On the product side there are two sodium atoms. Oxygen on left hand side 1 and these 4. So there are total 5 on the reactant side, and oxygen on the product side are 4 plus 1, that is 5. Now hydrogens, let's count the hydrogen. Here 1 hydrogen and here 2 hydrogens. So total 3 of the hydrogens on left hand side or reactant side, and here 2 hydrogen atoms overall on the product side. Remaining sulfur, there is 1 sulfur on the reactant side, and there is 1 sulfur on the product side. Now let's have a look at these numbers. So according to the law of mass action, the weight should be same. That means the number of atoms should be same. So ultimately the weight will be same on both sides. So if we can see here, sodium are not same on both sides. The atoms of sodium are not same on reactant and product side. So we need to make them same. And also there is hydrogen which is not same. So sodium and hydrogens, the atoms of sodium and hydrogens are not same on both the sides, whereas of oxygen and sulfur they are same. So we can focus on any one of the two which are not balanced, we can say. So sodium and hydrogen, the numbers are not same on both sides, so they are not balanced. So we can take any one of them to balance the equation. So we'll start with sodium. Here sodium is 1 and here it's 2. So if we multiply this sodium which is on the reactant side by 2, we will get 2. So now the numbers on both sides will be same. Now because of this, what will happen? If we will write 2 over here on the sodium side, this 2 will be applicable to the whole formula. This 2, it means it is multiplied to the whole formula. So if we are writing 2 for sodium, that 2 is applicable for oxygen and that is applicable for hydrogen as well. So now the numbers of oxygen and hydrogens have also changed. So we can just have a look that by doubling the number of sodium atoms, here sodium has been balanced. Now let's see for oxygen. Oxygen, here the oxygen have become 2, here 2 and here oxygens are 4. So overall here oxygens are 6 on left hand side. Now we'll see it on the right hand side, the oxygen here 4 and here 1. So 5 oxygen atoms are there. Now so the oxygen is not balanced now. We tried to balance sodium, but because of that, the number of oxygen atom has disturbed. Also, if we see for hydrogen, here two hydrogens, because two applicable to hydrogen, and these two hydrogens, so total 4 hydrogen on reactant side. And let's see on the product side, there are 2 hydrogens on the product side. So we need to balance that as well. Now let's think here, if we write here 2, because we need to balance hydrogen. First we can go for each atom one by one. If we try to go for hydrogen, here hydrogens are 4 and here they are 2. So there is just one option, that is to write 2 over here, right? So if we write here 2, that is applicable to this hydrogen. Now let me clear this. Hydrogens were 2. The atoms of hydrogens were 2. When I write 2 here as a prefix, that is applicable to the whole formula. So this 2 and this 2 gets multiplied. So we get 4 hydrogen atoms now on the product side. So once again we can have a look at the reaction. Sodium are 2, here sodiums are 2, oxygen 2, and these 4, 6 hydrogens. Now see this, these 4 hydrogens and this 2 as we have written is applicable to oxygen as well. So 4 and 2, there are 6 hydrogens. So the 6 oxygens, so the oxygens are satisfied. The valency, or we can say the atoms of oxygens, are same on both sides. Hydrogen as we have balanced it, so here 4 and here 2 2s are 4. Now sulfur, here 1 sulfur and 1 sulfur here. So this is how we have balanced the chemical equation. Take few more examples and try on your own. Now let's have a look at the new topic, that is types of chemical reactions. So there are basically 4 types of chemical reactions. So there are basically 4 types of chemical reactions. The first of it is combination reaction. As the name indicates, combination reactions, in this 2 atoms or 2 different molecules will combine together to form a single molecule, that is called as the combination reaction. So let's take an example. If I have taken ammonia gas, and if I have mixed that ammonia gas with H2, so what I'll get is ammonium hydroxide. So basically what happens over here is ammonia, that is in the gaseous form, water, that is in the liquid form. If we add the gas into the liquid, so that will dissolve in it, it will react with it and it will form ammonium hydroxide, that is the aqueous solution of ammonium hydroxide. Now what we can see over here are, there are 2 reactants which are combined to form a single product. So this kind of reaction is called as the combination reaction. There is one more example. If we take a magnesium ribbon and if we try to ignite it, the magnesium ribbon, if it is ignited, then it will start combustion. Okay, so what happens in the combustion? The atmospheric oxygen will react with the magnesium, and so magnesium, which is in the solid form, if we ignite it, that will combine with the atmospheric oxygen and that will form magnesium oxide. So to balance it, this is in the gaseous form, and magnesium oxide, a solid, a white colored solid is formed, that is what is magnesium oxide. So in this also, these 2 reactants are combined to form a single product. So this is the combination reaction. Next type of chemical reaction is decomposition reaction. Decomposition reaction, as the name suggests, a substance will decompose to give 2 or more substances. So let's take an example of calcium carbonate. When heated, gives calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide. which gets evolved in the gaseous form. So a single reactant is decomposing or gets split into two products. So this is what is decomposition reaction. If we take example of hydrogen peroxide, which is in the liquid form, that will be converted into by heating, it will decompose and that will give H2O and oxygen in the gaseous form. So that will be evolved, shown by upward arrow. So when a reactant decomposes to give two or more products, such kind of reaction is called as decomposition reaction. And the third type of reaction is displacement reaction. In this, the example which we have taken before is copper sulfate plus zinc, which gives zinc sulfate plus copper. In this, what happens? Copper, which is a metal, and zinc, which is also a metal, but now copper is in the solution form. It has formed an ion with some other ion. So this copper, which is in the ionic form, and if we compare both the metals, so zinc is more reactive than copper. The reactivity of metal that you will be dealing with next lessons, which will be coming in your syllabus. For now, among these two metals, zinc and copper, zinc is more reactive than copper. So what is happening in this reaction is copper was combined with sulfate ion, which is replaced by zinc in the product. So this indicates that zinc is more reactive than copper, and so the more reactive metal displaces the less reactive metal from its solution. I'll repeat. More reactive metal displaces the less reactive metal from its solution form. Such kind of reaction is called as displacement reaction. So the copper is displaced by zinc, which is more reactive than it, of course, and the copper is separated, which we get as a metal, and zinc combines with the sulfate ion. So this is how is the displacement reaction. And the last type of chemical reaction is double displacement reaction. For that, let's take an example which we have taken before. Sodium chloride and silver nitrate solution, both are in aqueous form. When they react together, they'll give NaNO3 and AgCl. This is in aqueous form, while we get the precipitate of this. Now, in double displacement reaction, what happens? All the ions gets exchanged. Now, NaCl and AgNO3. So they have exchanged, each ion have exchanged its position. So Na plus, just to make it clear for you, Na plus, which was combined with Cl minus, so this cation goes with the other anion and the other cation goes with the previous anion. So there is an exchange of ions. A positive ion goes with another negative ion, and this positive ion goes with the remaining anion. So this is how there is an exchange of ions. Both the ions get exchanged. So this is called, that's why it is called double displacement reaction. And generally in double displacement reaction, a precipitate is formed. So the formation of a precipitate is formed. So the formation of precipitate is the characteristic feature of double displacement reaction. This can be said. So next is endothermic and exothermic process or reactions. So there are certain reactions for which to occur, the heat has to be supplied from outside. So that such reactions are called as endothermic reactions or endothermic process. The processes for which the heat is to be supplied from the surrounding, such reactions are called as endothermic reactions. While in certain reactions, while the reaction is occurring, it evolves some amount of heat. So such kind of reactions are called as exothermic reactions. So for example, if we take KNO3, that is potassium nitrate, if we mix it with water, so that will take the heat. So that will absorb the heat. So such kind of reactions are called as endothermic. So we can show it it will take heat, and of course it will form KNO3 aqueous solution. So it is forming the aqueous solution by mixing into the water, but basically as it is taking the heat from the surrounding, so this kind of reaction is called as the endothermic reaction. So if we see the temperature of the test tube, if we are performing the test, this reaction in test tube, so if we see before and after the reaction, so the temperature of the product will be lesser than before. Then there is next, that is example of exothermic reaction. When we add sodium hydroxide in water, the pellets of sodium hydroxide when added into water, so that will give NaOH, that is aqueous sodium hydroxide, and it will evolve the heat. So as it is evolving heat, as it is giving out the heat, so such a reaction is called as exothermic reaction. And if we see after the sodium hydroxide is mixed into water, if we see the reaction mixture of the test tube, the temperature of it has increased. So this is half about the exothermic and endothermic process, and this is it for today's lecture. Remaining lesson will be covered in next lecture. Keep watching, keep learning, and be safe.